All right, Max, so we just got Tony that joined us now, so I think we should kick off. So everybody, welcome to today's session of personal effectiveness. I'm Chris Rapasardi in HR, and of course, we've got your trainer, Maxine Dorofeev here. Today, we're going to be joined by Anthony Balia. He's our new freshly minted head of support. He's been with KL for just under 10 years, so he's setting the big benchmark this year. So congratulations to Tony. And again, Tony is going to be our internal champion for this event. Tony has overseen a very large group of support for quite a long time. He was my choice for this program to kind of be our champion. Without being very efficient and organized, it would be very difficult for Tony to be as successful as he has been, given the large organization that he has overseen. So I kind of view him as a model of efficiency. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Tony. Tony, please feel free to jump in.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be with you. As Chris mentioned, I've been working for Kaspersky for the past 10 years, and I've been working in management for the past 26 years. And for one reason or the other, I continue to inherit large teams. And being organized and efficient are super critical in getting things done. I know here at Kaspersky, for the past several years prior to my promotion, I managed a very large team of 25 people, and I had 25 direct reports, so no managers under me. So it was a very flat organization, and I can't stress enough how important it was to stay organized and efficient. And I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to talk about tools and some techniques that I've used, but I've used several. I manage support and services, right? And specifically, I was managing the business products, the corporate client support for North America. And we try to stay as organized as possible in many ways. And one thing that we would do is we would build a scheduler to track basically, and to track different schedules of people, who was coming in at certain hours because we needed to cover certain hours of the day, who was on PTO, who was on, vacation, who was taking classes, that sort of thing. So that was one example of a tool that we would use. I also use tasks and Outlook in order to help me keep organized and follow up with projects and initiatives that we have in place, both for myself as well as my team. So when assigning tasks, so I know Outlook has the ability to assign tasks to people and remind people. So that's another tool that I would use. And to be honest, it might be representative of my age, but I'm pretty manual too, and I rely on my notebook quite a bit. And I remember when I was first starting out and I took on a similar type class, there was a simple method that was shown to me, and I sort of inherited that, where, I would jot down tasks that I would need to complete just in my notebook, and then I would, simply just put a little checkbox next to it. So I put a little box, and and whenever it was complete, I just checked the little box so I know it was done. And every day I would, kind of flip through my notebook for the past 2 or 3 pieces of paper, and, just see what I was working on, what was outstanding, and, and what I needed to continue to focus on working on. So I'm here, I'm in the office, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Feel free to reach out to me. If there are any things that you're facing that I can help with, I'd be more than happy to, to have a conversation with you.
Okay. I hope,
Max, if there are no questions, I'll open it up to questions, and if there are no questions, then I'd like to turn it back over to Max.
I have several questions. Let us give a chance to attendees to write something. We have a question pane here in the software. So I have some preset questions for you, just to give you a chance to share some wisdom. So first, maybe you just answered this question, what does it mean to you to be efficient? So as far as I get, in your case, in being manager in a case of flat organization, being efficient, it is very close to question of survival. Otherwise, no one can survive not being efficient. But can you say what else? What else does it mean to be efficient, and what it doesn't mean?
Yeah, and Max, I've been fortunate to take several different, training classes, over the past few years, and I think there's a number of things, and I think it's related to the topic that we're discussing here today. But another very important thing is personalities and correctly knowing how to interact with other people who you're working with personality, because everybody has different personalities. And, my personality is one where I like to get things done and off my plate, and understanding personalities of others and how to motivate them and how they work is also is very valid in this case, because you need to know how that person's personality is, because we're all different. Yeah. I like to put my nose down, get things done, and my natural personality is, I'm high energy and high strung until the task is done. But I realize that there are other people that have different personalities, and when you try to instill the same sort of methodology with them, it doesn't work because of their different personalities. So I would say that another important thing is getting to know what motivates people, how they work, and work with them, and then allow that person to work within those boundaries as well.
Yeah. Thank you. But Tony, I have one more, maybe unrelated question, but
sure.
Do you have any experience of being unproductive on different edge of productivity? Do you have some terrible story, maybe in your dark past, say when you had a lot of job to do and missed everything? Do you have this experience? Or
yeah, so I can absolutely think of a few different examples. Being prepared is obviously, being prepared and planning accordingly is huge in being successful in any task. I can honestly say that in my younger days, not being organized and not practicing with some of the tools that I mentioned, basically, especially in my younger days as a young manager, and I was a young manager. I think I was 23 or 24 years old when I first became, a manager. There were times where I would lose track of the work, assignments, missing deadlines, and that sort of thing. And it was clear that that being organized and taking some of these courses that I took and implementing some of these techniques that I use on random basis, and you're exposed to all kinds of different things, and you adopt certain ones. Basically helped in in achieving whatever tasks and goals that I had to basically accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's clear. So you have not been born organized. So the main point is that it is possible to become organized even if at some point of your life you were not.
Of course not. None of us are born organized.
Some people believe that it is inborn stuff. We should be born organized, otherwise it doesn't work. You already mentioned about some routines that you rely on your notebook, which you review on regular basis. Do you have any other regular, small, simple routines that, from your point of view, helps you to be productive? Like notebook review.
I mean, so I mentioned my notebook, and I rely on that a lot, but I also rely on the electronic tools that are available. I believe it or not, I use Outlook Calendar quite a bit, not just for scheduling meetings, but also for what I should be working on at that particular time of the day. So if you were to go look at my calendar for today, there's a block that I was just working within to, for example, complete my visa application, which I need to do. And then there's one later on for today for a monthly report that I need to get out the door by the end of today. So I try to use my Outlook calendar quite a bit. Number one, because it allows me to carve out parts of the day to work on specific tasks that are important, that are deadline driven. And by doing that, it allows me to have the time, and it doesn't, if somebody tries to schedule a meeting during that time, they know that I'm going to be busy working on, a particular topic at that time. So they'll usually steer away from those particular blocks unless it's, something critical. And then obviously I'll move those times around in order to accommodate.
That's clear. That makes sense. So we still have no questions in question pane, but I have the very last question because I'm personally interested in the answer. What do you think people typically get wrong about trying to be productive? For example, I have an impression that a lot of people, in order to be productive, trying to be up to date to everything. So they turn on notification about new emails, about new events in social network, in some systems, and then they just get some information overdose and killing their brain completely. But initially, the main intention was to be productive. So what, from your perspective, from your point of view, people typically tend to do wrong in order to be productive? Do you have
I know personally, I could spend the entire day being very reactive and responding to emails. And, one class that I took actually here at Kaspersky was, correct email and how to respond to email and when to respond to email. And because there's a lot of abuse in email, and I strongly feel that sometimes people are being copied on emails, or it's being that shouldn't be copied on emails. So I personally feel that the misuse of email is something that leads to a loss of productivity within the company because people, number one, people are being forwarded long email chains without summarizing it. So that's number one. And and you get the typical see below, and it's an encyclopedia of text that you need to read through, and I think that leads to a loss of productivity. Number one, where somebody just summed up, hey Tony, I need you to in summary, here's what happened. Looking for an answer with regards to this instead of me trying to decipher 5 or 6 pages of notes. And number two, only include the people who need to be included on email. And number three, some people use it for the wrong reason. They just, it's just going back and forth and back and forth, and they're having casual conversations over emails. Number four, turn the email off certain times of the day and set certain times of the day aside to check your emails, because we all, there are company policies that we need to abide by, and we need to respond to emails within certain time periods. But I find that it could be very distracting when you're working on a project and you see the little flag pop up on the bottom of the window, and your eyes tend to go to there, and now you're defocusing on the task at hand, and you're starting to work on the particular email that came in. So I think that's a big one.
I see. So it all concerned to email misuse. Yeah, maybe I agree with you. We have one question in question pane from Eduardo about interruptions, by the way. What we can do to avoid people interruption? I mean, how to say no in order to do not figure it non-proactive and hands-on. What does it mean? So
yeah. So I'm not sure if he means verbally or like through link, because I could find that to be very disruptive too. Where I'll be deeply involved in a meeting, and then you have a very non-urgent type request pop in via link, such as, hey, do you mind if I leave 20 minutes early today, or something like that. So if it's electronic, well, number one, turn the emails off. Number two, and emails times of the day. And I know that's a good practice to practice, and I honestly need to practice that myself a little bit more. With regards to link, if you are deeply involved with something and you cannot be interrupted, then I would definitely recommend using the do not disturb on link, so that people know that you're there, you're working, but you can't be disturbed. Put up, you could put up messages on link, basically saying, in a meeting, or, working on this, and when you're in a do not disturb mode, people won't, they're not allowed to communicate with you via link. As far as in person, I have the luxury of sitting in an office, and if somebody tries to come in and I'm on a conference call or discussing a serious matter, I'll usually just kind of raise my hand and say, give me a second, wave to them, and then circle back with them. Being in a cubicle, it may be a little bit more difficult, but I think you could probably practice the same sort of technique. I think it's a little tougher when you're sitting there alone, and you're trying to focus on a project, and and somebody comes in to ask you a question. Those are just things that that I personally practice in how I approach them with regards to interruptions.
Mm-hmm. So we have one more question. Very nice, I guess. It's very, very nice question. How to explain to those who is going to interrupt you that think they are going to interrupt you are urgent for them and could not be urgent for you?
Right.
Because urgency is relative.
You know what? It depends on the scenario, right? If I've had situations where there was a medical emergency going on the team, and you know what? So oftentimes, I'll try to read their body language. Mm-hmm. If I'm on a particular conference call or in a meeting, I think there were two scenarios where I was involved in serious medical situations where I was in my office and behind closed doors, and working on an in-depth project with other folks, and I believe we had a conference call going, and I tried to wave the person off, but then they came back to me, and basically said, I'm sorry, but this is really urgent. There's some sort of a medical emergency going on, and you need to be aware of it. And so obviously something like that trumped anything that I was working on for me to attend to it. But usually I'll say to them, is it something, I'm sorry, but I'm in the middle of, working on this project. As soon as this project is over, I'll circle back with you, or as soon as I'm done working on this, I'll circle back with you with regards to whatever topic that they want to discuss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And that usually works. To be honest, that usually works. Or I'll ask them, just basically to send me an email with whatever information they want to discuss. And if it's something that's of a non-urgent situation, as soon as I have some cycles, then I'll address it with them electronically.
Yeah, I see. So it might be a problem to decide what really urgent is and what is not. But anyway, in general, it's more or less clear. Okay. Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much. I think it was useful for all of us. And I suppose Tony is open for any question after this session. If we have any, we can forward to Tony. I hope so.
Thank you, Max. And thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
All right.
I think we can go on. And also, because I see in questions, Eduardo raised very good questions about urgency, about sense of urgency, and the opinion that the sense of urgency need to be explained to all our employees. I think it is, but I hope that you remember the point from our first webinar, that conceptual knowledge really help us to work that way. In some cases, we need more than just something to be explained. In some cases, we need tricks that help us to behave in specific ways. So, in my topic, in applied procrastinatology, I call it how to nurture your monkey, because all of us are mostly monkeys. So, okay, let us go back for our fourth webinar. So we here is to talk about retrospective or some small ideas how to look back to move forward, because regular reviews, some routines to take a look what have been done, what has been done, and what has not, are essential in any organizational methodology. And moreover, this practice on this terrible practice list, on this practice tree, which show us how we supposed to save mind fuel, it has a point, conduct regular review. And here I show that it is crucial point to obtain trust to your list, task list, project list, and so on. And we should admit that no tool can help us to save mind fuel, time, or whatever unless we trust to this tool. And we cannot start trust to something just of our own accord. It doesn't work this way. This trust has to be earned. And one of the main points of this earning this trust is to regularly review all our artifacts. Maybe you do remember from our second webinar, I was talking just a little bit about urgency zones in our task lists. And in some cases, this approach of using rough timescale, rough urgency zones like today, week, and later, this approach works better than assign specific dates to particular tasks. But only in case all the urgency zones are regularly reviewed. Or in other words, these urgency zones, they might be presented as boxes where we store our tasks. We have box for today. We put tasks that should be done today there, and tasks for this week we put in other box, and also we have one more box for later. It doesn't mean that we should write there tasks that we are not going to do now. Never. It means that we should write their tasks, also monkeyfied, also very simple tasks, but those that we can afford not to think about this, at least this week. So also this box structure, this task list structure should be enhanced with some review routines, regular review routines. For example, 3 or 5 minutes a day for reviewing these two books, today and this week. And also we should spend weekly about 10, maybe 15 minutes, not more, for complete review of all the tasks in our task list. It should not require plenty of time to do this review. I think 30 minutes per week are more than enough in most cases. And I'm going to briefly describe you the main idea of daily review, and then I also will go into will describe the main idea behind weekly review, and we will conduct weekly review right away in order to perform maybe the main important exercise of all the technique, all the personal effectiveness approach, the strategic review. But first thing first, a few words about daily review. First of all, we are supposed to have at least some point of time to dedicate it to having a look on what has been done. And here is an example of checklist that might help in this way. There are few main points that should be checked on daily basis. For example, first of all, we should decide what should we do with tasks left in today's box. Because it is absolutely normal to have something left in today's box by the end of the day. And it doesn't mean that you cannot plan, you cannot make plan. But in fact, I don't think that some of you took, like in Harry Potter, divination classes in college. So it is completely normal to be in situation when today is over, but tasks for today are not. So our plans often would not reflect the reality. But anyway, by the end of the day, we have to make an ambiguous decision on those tasks that are left. For example, we should, first of all, paraphrase some tasks that we are going to keep in today. Because I hope you remember from our second webinar when we were talking about monkeyfication, that very popular reason of task procrastination is huge procrastination gap. What does it mean, huge procrastination gap? It means that sometimes we often write one thing in our task list, but at the same time we are supposed to do something different. For example, I might write down in my notebook a task, for example, create a monthly report, but my very next action is not to create the report itself. It is to remind my team again, one more time, remind them to send me the data that my report is going to be based on. So that means procrastination gap. We write one thing in task list, but we are supposed to do completely different thing. And the distance between this pictorial different distance is a procrastination gap. The more the gap is, the higher probability of this task procrastination. Another point is that some of tasks from today, they might wait for a little longer, so maybe it is a good idea to move them to different boxes, to this week or later, or maybe some of tasks left in today's box, maybe they not necessary at all, so we can easily just delete them. In some cases, it is crucial to do at least something right away and do the rest of the task later. So in this case, we just do something right away and create a task for the rest for the later, for today box, or for this week, or for later. What does it mean? What is practical in this case? And another point is to add new tasks to your task list. For this, we could take a look at what has been done today, what we have done today at our completed list, or at the list with crossed out items. Or in Outlook, we can take a look at task pane and see completed tasks for today. Completed tasks for today might remind us of something else that has to be done, but we haven't written them down. And another point, for example, take a look at your calendar just to have an impression how your next day will be looking like. And also, it's a good point to ask yourself, is there any upcoming events or meeting that you should be prepared for? If so, just take a few breaths to think about this and add specific tasks to your task list. So, generally speaking, that's all. There are just two main items in daily review checklist, and at this point, we are not going to spend time to conduct daily review here, but I think you can write this new practice to your daily checklist. Just write it down here, saying conducted the daily review, and try to pay attention to this line. So if you think this practice is hard anyway, you can spend at least 30 seconds a day just looking at your task list for today and making at least a little bit closer to being up to date. We do not need up to date lists right away. We need a kind of habit of making it better and better from time to time. So daily review is quite simple practice, and as well as weekly review also. But anyway, I'm going to give you a couple of hints about weekly review that make everything even more simpler. First hint is that we should have recurrent task in our task list. So do not forget to create a recurring task for your weekly review, and if you do not use any electronic task list, any software task list, you can use your daily checklist for this purpose as well. It might work, but most likely, if you are going to create only an appointment in your calendar, it will not work. I don't know why, but very often people decide to create a meeting in their calendar for weekly review. And the main problem with this is that there is no easy way to understand whether you have already conducted the weekly review or not. Because if I have an appointment for say every Monday from 10 to 11, and consider now it is 3 p.m., so how could I know that I have done my review already? I should stop and consult to my memory. I should stop and start remembering. But remembering as well as thinking requires mind fuel. And actually it is not very easy process for all of us. I hope you remember why. I hope you already believe in this. So, but having a task in a task list resolves this issue more or less completely, because if the task is not marked as completed, it is unambiguously means that this task has not been done, whatever time it is now. So the approach I will remember will work worse than appointment, and not having anything that reminds you about weekly review will not help as well at all. And it is the first hint. So if you need something to be happened, try to write down it to your task list. It doesn't guarantee that you will do this, but significantly increase probability of this outcome. And another hint for weekly review, but in more general words, we are going to talk about this rule next webinar on Thursday, when we are going to talk about procrastination. Another hint might sound a little bit counterintuitive, because very often we want everything and at once, but in fact we are not able to have either everything or nothing. In most of cases, we have only one choice, either at least something or nothing. And in most cases, when we decide to do 1 hour review or something big and huge, it will be procrastinated. If we were logical creatures, we would believe that 2 hours weekly review will pay for itself many times over, and this understanding would be enough for us to act this way. But As you might guess, understanding or knowing what should we do doesn't mean that we would behave this way. It doesn't mean absolutely. So since we have monkeys in our heads, and as soon as monkey anticipate something important that takes at least 2 hours, it starts to whisper like this: it is very important, it is necessary, it is useful, so let us manage small stuff first. So that's how it works. So in most cases, it's much better to do at least something, for example, 5-minute review, than to do not do at all anything. So we do not need the best solution. We are looking for something that can make everything a little bit better than it is today. And another hint is that it is okay to perform weekly review 2 or maybe 3 times a week. It is if your task lists and project lists are far from being up to date, it doesn't mean that you have to make it is up to date at once. It is better to make this in 2 or 3, 5 or 10 minutes sessions. It might work with higher probability. Also, for weekly review, we're supposed to have some kind of checklist as well. So here are main points that we should check on weekly basis. First of all, we should carefully read all the tasks in our task list. Add tasks that should be added or remove that are obsolete or paraphrase where necessary. Also, we should carefully read other projects in our project list. I hope you do remember that we have separate lists for tasks and separate lists for projects. Also, we should mark those projects which are complete, or maybe we should add some tasks for some specific projects. And finally, we should take a look at our calendar to have an impression, have an idea how our upcoming week look like. How many meetings we have already set up, do we have any business trips, do we have any presentation, do we have any particular events that may take a lot of time or large bulks of time. So, and according to this and according to what we see in calendar, we should add additional tasks to our task list. So also it's not the rocket science at all. It's just reason, just a simple, straightforward routine to spend 10, maybe 15 minutes to make your task list a little bit better or a little bit more actual. So right here and right now, I would like to propose you to spend 10 minutes right away for making our task list a little bit more up to date. Because for next exercise dedicated to strategic review, we will need up-to-date task list. The closer your task list would be to the reality, the more precise results you will get after strategic review, after exercise on strategic review that we are going to perform in 20 minutes. So let me do the following. I will start a timer for 10 minutes, and on count 3 I will start a timer for 10 minutes, and then we will start looking at our task lists, our project list, and our calendar. Please do not look at your emails, because most likely you will be trapped and lose all your consciousness there, becoming an email zombie. So let us right here and right now spend 10 minutes on looking and actualizing our tasks and project list on 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Let us do it right here and right now. Okay. Guys, are you ready? Can you share your experience in a task, in a question pane? I do have 2 questions there that I found to be very nice and very interesting, and I think I should answer them first. But you are welcome to share what do you think about this review in the question pane as well. So I would like to know if you feel that 10 minutes are enough to read all your task list and make them up to date, or if it is not. If it is not, what is your estimation? What do you think? 15 minutes would be enough or not? So, what do you think? Oh, it is more than enough for Kevin. It was productive time for Paola. Also, let me answer these 2 questions. I don't know if you can see these questions on your screen. I'm not sure if it is sharing. Question, first of all, if we keep moving tasks ahead, is not it a procrastination? Question from Renato. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it is not. And also, even in case when it is procrastination, it doesn't mean that procrastination is always a bad thing. Sometimes it is not, because it is widely known idea from, for example, if you know this theory of constraints, that in some cases, in order to have result faster, we should start working on a task later to prevent overtime, overwork, and overwhelm of production system. So in most of cases, it is more or less logical to start working on a task a little bit later, and in some cases, it might help us to finish it even earlier. It might be. If you don't believe this, just let me know. I can share later some links with you with this pretty nice experience and description of these cases, but them are widely known among managers. Another question goes from Eduarda about the same topic, about urgent tasks that are coming from different ways and that are urgent. Because I strongly believe that in some cases it might happen this way, that a lot of urgent tasks are going here and there and going to your task list. So finally your today list became bigger and bigger. It might happen. And first reason of this is urgency perception bonus. First of all, first question I should check, do you have your email notifications turned off? If no, try to do this, because it is very common reason of this symptom. So let the email come and be stored in your inbox, but in this case you will not be aware of them. It might help you to concentrate on the other tasks, complete them faster, and quickly go back to inbox and see if something new is there. Another point is these tasks are going from different people, live people. So they could come in person and ask you something. So in this case, the following might help. It might help if you make your work visual. For example, when I was working in IT in Kaspersky, we have a task, just physical tasks board for our task list for our group. It was a huge board with real stickers with written tasks on them. And when somebody come with a new task at hand, for example, something with a new task, you can visually ask him where he is supposed to put this task, either on top of all other tasks, or maybe it is not so urgent like this one, maybe it should be placed somewhere here. And the main idea behind this is that when someone comes to you and asks for a task, he or she do not forget anything about other tasks that he might ask you to do. So it would be nice to kindly remind him about this task. So try to keep visual your task for today, and in case someone comes in person and asks you to do some new task, just try asking for help, because people typically are ready to help. So asking for help, how urgent this task is in comparison with other tasks. So it also might help in case of more than one boss, because let me guess, you have more than one boss, and which is worse, in some cases they are not aware of each other. So this making your task list visual might help them know each other and see that you have a lot of other stuff to do. So I hope that helped. So going back to weekly review, so you think that it is plenty of time. Yeah, just plenty of time, 10 minutes more than enough. 10 minutes a week, it is more than enough to keep your task list up to date. So I hope you succeeded with the up-to-date task list, and we can proceed with maybe most important topic. I hope you already understand that doing things in effective way may be important, but not always, because there are a lot of things that should not be done at all, effectively or not. They should not be done at all. So let us talk about this. And to start talking about strategic review, I hope everyone is familiar with Sisyphus, a character from Greek mythology. But I would like not get to the point immediately, and I would like to start short talk about ancient Japanese marketology or marketing. In middle of 80s of previous century, there was, and actually there is, a guy named Noriaki Kano. He is a Deming Prize winner, and he is widely known in Japan and in the whole world actually as a quality engineer. He is dealing with common known situation as we have a huge demand of new features for new product, but we have very little amount of resource. Thus we have to understand what features and in what degree we should implement and what features we should neglect. And Noriaki had an idea that all requested features can fall in 3 major groups. Actually, there were 5 groups, but for our purposes, 3 will be enough. And these groups of features, they show how customer satisfaction on this axis depends on degree of implementation. So a degree of implementation shows how many resources are invested in development, from not implemented at all to fully implemented, perfectly implemented. So also it has some states in between. So partially implemented or implemented is, they say, how fast, or in other way. And so there are 3 major groups of features. First, named must be. It means that customer became immediately unsatisfied in case this feature is not implemented. But if it is implemented so-so, customer is more or less okay, happy. It is fully implemented, it's perfectly implemented, so customer feels okay anyway. So it is the first group. He feels okay, however it is implemented, unless it is implemented at least somehow. There is another group called delighters, or some features that gives wow effect. Nobody cares if these features are not implemented at all, but if at least somehow partially implemented, customer became satisfied, very satisfied. And he is extremely happy if this feature even works. And also there are a group of features that lies somewhere in between. They call it more or less, or the more the better. The more the better features. Let me give you some examples in some product development examples. For example, if I do have my cell phone And making phone calls is must be features. So if it is not able to make a call, I'm terribly unhappy. But if it can make calls, so I expect it to work this way, so it's okay for me. But if it makes a call and gives me a frequency band not 3 kilohertz as it usually does, but 6 kilohertz, which is quite challenging from engineering point of view, but from customer perspective, from my side, from my perspective, it doesn't make any difference at all. So it's still okay. It might be implemented better. In this case, I can crystal clear here my other person on the other side, but it doesn't make a big deal. It doesn't make a big difference for me. So it is a must-be feature. Also, I have a camera, and amount of megapixels in this camera is the more the better feature, because I know that 13 megapixels may be better than 5, and 21 is much better than 13. And also, I have a group of delighter features. For example, this Samsung mobile, it has sensor, it has heart rate sensor. Moreover, it is able to measure heart rate variability with phone, amazingly. So actually, I'm pretty sure that not too much of you have heart variability sensor on your phone, and you do not feel insulted in this case. So it's okay, you're not expecting your phone to measure your stress level and heart variability, so you do not care too much, you do not become unsatisfied. But if you have, in some cases, for some of us, it might be a delighter, it might be a wow feature. It is nice. So I hope you're more or less grasp this idea of three main groups of features. And if so, some time ago I realized that our tasks in task list also can be classified in such a way. We have red tasks, we have tasks that are must-be tasks, for example, to write weekly report, because your boss will get angry with you if you don't do this in time. But if you provide the report in time, okay, it is okay for him. If you provide the report on time and it will be, from designer's perspective, designed like something perfect, right? A piece of art, he doesn't care unless the numbers are correct and make sense. So it is still okay for him. But also there are some group of tasks that are delighters, because nobody cares that these tasks are undone or still residing on your task list, but making such tasks made you a little bit happier, or not maybe you, maybe somebody else. So if so, let me give you another observation about tasks. First observation is that most of red tasks or most of must-be tasks are in some sense silly and boring. This kind of silly routine. And most of green tasks are tasks that are moving us forward, making us better, changing something in our day-to-day work. And second observation is that in most of cases, most of us tend to start our day with red tasks, with must-be tasks. And we prefer, due to unknown reason, to finish must-be tasks first, and then, and only then, go to start to do some delighters. So please let me know, is it your case? Do you also feel that there are green tasks, delighters in your task list, and red ones that must be? And do you agree that must be tasks are a little bit boring and you tend to start your working day with doing red tasks? Is it your case or not? What do you think? Renata wrote that he is trying to avoid boring must-do tasks. So if you answered no, it means that you not only try and you are succeeding with avoiding boring tasks. Pete and Kevin agree, yes, start with red tasks. It might be okay to start with red tasks, maybe not, it doesn't. There are no general answer, let me say. But if it is your case, we can go further to Sisyphus Analogy. What do I mean with Sisyphus Analogy? If we tend to start our day with must-be tasks and then, only then, allow ourselves to do some delighters, we might behave like Sisyphus, that guy that, according to Greek mythology, have to deal with this stone, and every day he have to push this stone to the hill. And every morning he found this stone again on the very bottom of the hill. So he forced to do this one more time again. In this case, what does it mean? So in some sense, from some point of view or some perspective, our work looks like the one of Sisyphus. Let us imagine that we do have two Sisyphus. One Sisyphus on the left and another Sisyphus on the right, which made a little bit more effort to push his stone a little bit more forward. So in this case, he pushed his stone a little bit forward. He invested a little bit more effort, but the result can be significantly bigger than that from left Sisyphus. What does it mean? This picture explains the idea why an employee that constantly showing outstanding results in most of cases doesn't work more than an employee showing mediocre results. Outstandingness, or how outstanding the results are, these are defined by amount of green work done, amount of green tasks. Making red tasks complete does not make us better. It just help us to do not become worse. But some progress, some moving forward can be done only by means of green tasks. So I hope right now it is more or less clear that in this case, investing a little bit more energy, a little bit more, just a little bit more effort makes a very big difference in long term. Even in mid term makes a very big difference, because right Sisyphus, he made 2 times more green tasks than left one. And in some cases, in some degree, the proportion might be even worse. This guy might make infinite amount of times more green tasks than left one. Because in some cases, we might face a situation like this. So most of us, I'm not sure if it is your case, but maybe sadly it is someone can agree and say that it is his or her case, that in most days we are not able to reach the end of red zone. Anyway, so let me know if this is your case, if it is polite to agree with this, if it is polite to confess. So it strongly depends on that. But there are another points, and the next point is that it is not always straightforward to get which tasks are red and which one are green. So Kevin luckily says that no, he can usually get to all my red tasks, but actually the proper question we should ask, can we usually get to green tasks? Do we have at least something green done, at least daily? So that is important. But another point is how we can get which tasks are red and which one are green. And it is not quite simple, because it is very relative situation, because some red tasks might be red for you but green for another person. And we should decide on which side or from what point we should look on this question. And I suppose that since we are talking about personal effectiveness, we should look from personal perspective. And another point, another question I would like to ask you for following 2 minutes or 2 time circles. Can you spend 2 minutes right here and right now, writing down somewhere on a list of paper, what do you want? What do you want to get, to achieve, to have been done? Some huge goals, projects that you really want to do in your life, maybe in mid-term, maybe in long term. What do you want? Right here, we should not think about, you might know, like SMART. There is a way called SMART. We should not make our goals SMART. It means simple or specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-frameable, and so on. The only reason or the only criterion that we could write anything to that list of our goals is thinking about achieve this goal make us a little bit happier. So what it might be in your case, just for exercise, just for your own, please spend 2 minutes to create this list. Maybe 1, maybe 3, maybe 5 goals. Just let us do right here and right now. And then we will talk about this a little bit more. Let us go. Were you able to do it, to create a small tasks of what you want to achieve, to get, to have? Because this list becomes a prism via which we are going to look on our task list. Because how things look like. On one hand, we do have some space of inbox where emails, messages, ideas came. Then, as we know, all these inbox items, them are transferred to tasks, projects, and they should go, or at least intend to go, to goal side of the list. On that goal side, we have something that we really do want, as well as some stuff that we ought to want or other people want us to want, because there are a lot of stuff in modern world, a lot of goals that are not intentionally ours. These are external goals because somebody, where some company, some people want us to do this. And for example, marketing, it is a dark or black marketing. It is a science of science or art that shows you and gives people ability to implant some desires in your brain. So it makes you feel that you want something that you really do not want. But anyway, it is quite complicated topic anyway, so I prefer not to talk about this right now, because the main point is not that there are a lot of things that we think we want. No, the main point here is that relation between all that inbox items, emails, ideas, messages, and how they are related to our goals is very unclear. It's very mess. And in worst cases, amount of everything in our inbox became huge. It became overwhelmingly huge, so we're not able to deal with all of them at once. We're not able to deal with them at all. And finally, we came to the main question: how to manage everything. And I think most of you came to this course in order to have the answer how to manage everything. And the answer is very sad. It's very sad. So to manage everything, it can be easily done in exactly the same way. How, for example, in exactly the same way as to eat everything you want and to stay slim, to sleep less than 4 hours and don't hate people and don't want to kill them, and to check a newsfeed, for example, only for 1 minute, because typically we are trapped with this for a long time. So the short answer: no how. There is no way to manage everything. And maybe the main point that I would like to highlight here is when we tend to ask, what should I do to achieve my goal? In most of cases, we should think not what should I do, but what should we stop doing? Because in most of cases, we already overwhelmed, already overburdened with a lot of other stuff we should do. And a lot of that stuff do not deal and doesn't help us to achieve our personal goals. And we should start to think, what should we stop doing to create space for new tasks and ideas and new actions that could lead us to our ideas. So, and if the relation between all that inbox items and all that goals is unclear, how could we know what we should remove from this list? And in order to do that, there is a magical question. Means for what? And a habit of asking yourself for what? This habit might make a big deal in achieving your own goals. So what I want to do next, after weekly review, we are supposed to have the task list, more or less actual and more or less up-to-date task list, the task or the list of small monkeyfied items that are quite straightforward, quite easy to do. And after 2 minutes thinking about our goals, we are supposed to have some list of goals. And can we spend a couple of minutes for trying to see commonalities and differences between those task lists? Can we go to our task list and start asking every task what for, what it is it for, why it is residing in our task list, how it might help, and for which goal? For example, we can find that we have a task in our task list, for example, to call a teacher and make an appointment for next Spanish lesson. And in case we have learned Spanish in our task list, in our goal list, we could see, we have a first task that help us to make a little bit closer to our goal, at least to one of it. Then we can find another task, for example, Google something that could help us launch the product in time. So we could mark this task also as a task making us closer to another, our goal. And we will be interested in gaps. How many tasks are not making us closer to any goal, and how many goals are without any tasks? To do so, first of all, can we go back to our goal list and write dots behind a goals, and a dot will denote a task. It will denote that at least some task is in our task list that make us closer to this goal. If I have a task, call the teacher and ask when the next lesson will be, and if I have it, and if I believe that this task completion make me closer to my goal, at least a little bit, I can write a small dot in front of this goal. Also, if I have a goal, say pass XYZ professional exam, and if I have in my task list 2 tasks that I believe make me closer to that goals, for example, enroll for XYZ exam or Google for examples of examinations for questions, if I do have these tasks in my task list, I could also put 2 dots for this. And if I have no task in my task list for launch a new product, and if it is my goal and I have no tasks, this task will be left with no dots at all. So let us spend 2 minutes to write dots in front of goals. And also, if you wish, you could also mark dots in tasks that have corresponding goal. And as soon as you're done, you just I would ask you to write done or completed or ready in task pane, in question pane, so I would know that we can go forward. Just let us spend 2 minutes right here and right now writing dots. And also, as soon as you are done, just share your impression. How do you feel about this? What do you think about what you get? Let us do this right here and right now. Mm-hmm. Mary Beth wrote that she just did it for personal list. Yeah. Because I didn't write down any work-related goals. Good, good. It might be done either separately for work-related goals or for personal goals, but it is not necessary, because in some cases it is perfect, it is very nice to have goals that from one perspective are work-related goals, but from other perspective this goal is what you are personally interested in. It is nice when you found this kind of harmony. Maybe not all goals should be both personal and work related, but some of them might be. Or Renata wrote, I feel like I only have must-do tasks. That is exactly what I want you to feel. Not all of you, but it's a very nice feeling. It is, I understand, unpleasant feeling, but it could help you to think about what tasks you should add to your task list. Because by default, we add only must-do tasks, only red tasks. Because by default, we are driven by panic monster. Who is panic monster? Is a monster that push red tasks. Those tasks that if we leave these tasks undone, it will be bad. But if we complete them, it is expected to be this way. And panic monster just do not care about green tasks at all. And it is your responsibility to push green tasks. So maybe it is very good point if you have some goals with no tasks that make you closer to just take a couple of breath and think, what could you do? What could you think? What could you delegate to your internal monkey maybe today to make you at least a little bit closer, at least to one of these goals, at least to one of them. So, and sometimes it is normal, like Pete wrote, that goals are more or less personal, and task list reflects some work tasks. But it would be nice anyway to have some of your personal tasks in your task list. It is nice to have a common task list for both personal life and work, especially in case you have imbalance between personal life and work. What do you mean imbalance? Typically, when people say imbalance between life and personal life and work, they mean ambiguously only one situation, when the work eats all the personal life. I have not met any person who might say that, I have an imbalance between my personal life and work because all my personal life ate all the work out. So no, it doesn't mean so. So I have a project to improve report. Is this actually a goal? Is it both? Project to improve a report, let us call goals those things that you personally interested in. Thinking about this goal make you a little bit happier. In some cases, I suppose that it might happen in work. I hope it happens in work. When you have some work-related project to improve something, to make something, to streamline something, to make something easier, it makes you feel happy when you think about this. So it might be your goal, why not? But also it is the next important question: do you have any tasks in your task list that make you closer to that goal? So we are interested in these gaps. First of all, how many tasks are not related to any of your goals? We at least supposed to have some tasks, or maybe major amount of tasks, large amount of tasks that do not make us closer to our goals. On the other hand, it is interesting to take a look at goals that have no tasks that are related to them, no tasks that can make us closer. And for those tasks, I have a wording. First, I heard it about 20 years ago from my scientific supervisor when I was a PhD student, and in some moment he just simply told me that without digging you have no burrow. And I immediately call it hamster law. I do not know, I have no idea if hamsters live in burrows, but it sounds very nice. Also, I'm not an artist, so my burrow looks like a bear, but anyway, without digging we have no burrow. I like this hamster law because it works very pretty. It tells us that if we start to dig, it means if we start to do any tasks, it doesn't guarantee us that we will have burrow. But if we will not dig, it will guarantee that we have no burrow at all. So that's how it works. It doesn't show us a sure way to succeed. It can underline a sure way to failure. So at least for any of goals, if you truly need them to be achieved at least at some point of your life, maybe it is a good idea to ask yourself, maybe right now, maybe 10 or 5 minutes later, to ask what you can delegate to your internal monkey. What could you write down to your task list in very simple terms, monkeyfied task that can make you a little bit closer to that goal. And that tasks that make you closer to your goal, we will call green tasks. So finally, there is a new practice that I propose you to write down to your task list and propose you at least to think about this and maybe to practice, is to get at least one green task done. Maybe at least one task done a day, at least one task that make you closer to what you really want to get, at least at some point of your life. And another point is indicator, a number of green tasks done. And by the way, speaking about this practice, I strongly recommend you to try this practice on different level. Try to get at least one green task done before you have read at least something from email, before contact to the outer world. I will talk about this later. I will talk about this, about value of not checking emails first. I will talk about this on our last session, the 5th session. But you could try. It's very nice. Before you open any mail, before you take a look at any social networks, chat, whatever, try to do at least one green task. So, and see what happens. See what difference is. And also, we have a new indicator. How many green tasks you have managed to done during this specific day. You could also add this indicator into your indicator list on your daily checklist and just try to observe and practice it further. So, finally, the homework for today. We have new things to practice for the rest of today and for tomorrow. It is daily review. Just spend at least 30 seconds, pay attention for 30 seconds to your today list. Weekly review, maybe it is not the topic we should practice for the rest of today and tomorrow, but it is a nice point to practice at least once a week. So that is the name, weekly review. And another practice that I would like you propose you to practice is to have at least one green task done. Try to do at least something today and tomorrow, and then share your experience on this. How do you feel about this? And a new indicator to observe is the number of green tasks done for today. for every day. It doesn't mean that it is bad to do no green task at all. It is just indicator. It is indicator. It is something that free of terms of judgment or guilt. It is just pure number. Just consider it to be this way. Just pure number. It is not either good or bad. It is what it is. It's just number. So it is all for today's session. I will go and take a look at question pane, and I will do my best to answer any question that you might have at this point. And you are welcome to answer anything. Just let me take a look. I have an old question from Eduardo, or not the question, a comment, that I just lose those last 20 minutes of the webinar. It means first webinars of first 20 minutes, because my boss just arrived from Russia. Actually, I think things are not exactly in this way. So I mean that if your boss would not arrive from Russia today, maybe you have not had lost that 20 minutes. But actually, maybe you lost that 20 minutes due to something else. Just try to think about this. How do you recommend that we indicate green or other colors the task and task list? Try to experiment on yourself. On my task list, I have a category which says green tasks, because actually it is normal to have not too many green tasks in our task lists. For example, I have maybe 2 or 3 among about 30 tasks. So it would be nice to make it easier for you to find these green tasks. So if you use some software, for example Outlook, you can mark them as green, why not? If you use some old-fashioned, or not old-fashioned, but some paper stuff, I should not call it old-fashioned, you can use some green pointer, green highlighter to highlight those tasks, to make them visible, to make them first thing appear in your mind when you take a look at this task list. Just try to experiment on yourself. Also, maybe it was worth to try to write some decoration on it, like a little flower, sun, smile, or whatever. Just try and feel free to experiment, because nobody knows in advance what will work. Our goal is to make experiments on ourselves, because only we can understand what can work for us. So that is the main idea. Just feel free to experiment. I think green indicator or some smiley or something else might work. Just try it. Okay, do we have any other questions? Anyway, if any question appear later stages, you can easily ask me either on Facebook group or in LinkedIn group. I just sent at the beginning of our session, I just have sent, let me resend this again in the chat. I sent the link to LinkedIn group. You can go there, ask me to join. I will approve your request and you will be in the group. You can answer, I'm ready to answer any questions there, and if you have any question, you can just create a new discussion and I will answer. So let me again say thank you to all of you for attending this webinar, and I'm looking forward to meet all of you on Thursday, when we are going to talk about procrastination and some not straightforward topics. I would call it advanced topics of procrastinatology. So see you on Thursday. Thank you guys, and goodbye. Have a good day.